Hello campers, let's take a few minutes to talk about research. What is research? Well, it's not random Googling and not looking at pictures. We'll talk more about Google in a minute. But research papers should not involve pictures. You might use pictures if you're doing a presentation, but stay off the pictures for this project. It's also not looking only for facts that support what you think is true. One of the things that students do, their complaint will be, I can't find anything. And while that can be true sometimes, you have to remember two things. First, research takes time. If you have 2 weeks to write a research paper, up to half of that time should be spent just finding your information. The second thing to remember is that you should not go into research thinking that you already know what the topic is about. Don't simply look for things that you think are true. Instead, collect information in order to increase your understanding. So if your research topic is basketball, instead of finding the things you already know about basketball, just learn about basketball. And at the end of your research process, present the new things that you know. Where do I look? Now in some later videos, we're going to look at some specific places to look, but let's talk about reliability. Reliability means trustworthy. Can you count on it? So some of the sources that are more reliable would be on this end of the spectrum: books and magazines, newspapers and journals, official websites marked with .edu or .gov. That would also include digital versions of books, magazines, and newspapers. The not so sure would be .com websites, YouTubes, and let's just cross this one out, memes. Memes are not a source of good information. So, how do you know if it is a good source, if it's a .com site? Well, you ask, is it credible? In other words, is it credible or is it CRAAP? The C stands for currency. That means, is it timely? Try to find sources that are less than 2 years old. Just a quick tip on that. Remember when some of your teachers were kids, we were told that there are 9 planets. And we know that since then, science has changed. So you don't want to use old information. Next, is it relevant? Does it relate to what you're writing about? The first A means authority. Think about the source. When you have good information, or you become an authority based on experience and education. So just because somebody really likes a game, or just because somebody is a fan of football, does not give them authority. Next, is it accurate? If you find grammar and spelling errors in a website, then you have to think about what else might be wrong with that website. And last, think about purpose. Facts can be twisted, so you have to think, is the author of the website trying to sell something? Are they trying to convince you to believe what they believe? If that's the case, you may want to double check your information. Plagiarism. That's using somebody else's work as your own. Now you probably know that plagiarism, it would be plagiarism to copy another person's paper. But you have to remember 3 other things. Plagiarism happens if you don't cite your sources. Plagiarism happens if you don't use quotes around words that are not your own. Plagiarism happens if you put things in your own words without citing the source. That's called paraphrasing, and you still have to cite the source. How do you cite the source? Well, I always suggest that you begin with the end. The last page of your paper is a Works Cited page, and a Works Cited page is a list of the sources used. It includes things like the author, the title, the publisher, and the date. You always place it in alphabetical order. It's double spaced, and it has a hanging indent to show which items go together. There's another video about that if you need a little help. You also want to compile your research notes. Now maybe you've been told not to cut and paste. Well, here's some great news. You can cut and paste as long as you do a couple of things, or you can copy and paste. First, when you take something from a source, punctuate those sentences you copy with quotation marks. Next, be sure to add a Works Cited entry each time you copy a note. Last two things, copy only 1 or 2 sentences per entry, and be sure to organize your notes as you find them. When you're putting together your paper, you're going to use a strategy called Super ACE, and each paragraph should be layered. You should answer the question. So for example, if you're being asked about how to form a volcano, give an answer to that question. Next, you would cite evidence or use a quote from the text. And then for E, you would extend that answer by explaining or expanding. Research papers at the 7th grade level use a style called MLA. That stands for the Modern Language Association. It's kind of the NFL of nerdy writers and researchers. It sets rules for writing so that the papers are fair and consistent. In addition to a Works Cited page, you have some other rules. Oops, and I'm going to fix that mistake. First, use plain Times New Roman font. It's going to be size 12 point. You use 1-inch margins. You indent paragraphs. The entire paper is double spaced. You have a right header. It includes your last name and page number. And then on the first page, you have a header with your name, your class, your teacher, and then the date on the first page. Thanks for listening to a little talk on research. You will see that I have some video links in this research to show you how to do each of these things, the Works Cited page, the research notes. Bye-bye.